This is the Creative Project, and it is by Rachel Bailey and Gwen Russell. So the tests that were done was cardiorespiratory, musculoskeletal, body composition, flexibility, and anthropometrics. The participant was Gwen Russell, and the first test was done was the anthropometrics height for BMI. So the participant stood behind the measurement, and so the tester was able to pull down the white slab to where her head met the measurement to see her exact height from the measurement that was listed on the wall. The next test was the BMI test for weight. So we first needed to make sure that the scale was calibrated by sliding the weight to 0. And once it did that, we made sure it came to a complete stop. The participant stepped on the scale with no shoes and sliding the small weight slowly along the scale to balance the beam so it stops completely with the needle in the center of the slot. The next composition was the handheld BIA. So the participant first set the categories to her measurements, and these measurements were like sex, age, height, and weight of the participant. And once she completed each one, she pressed start and held out the BIA in front of her with straight arms and with no movement until it was finished, and then it stated her results. The next test that was done was the flexibility test, and we chose the sit and reach. So the participant first took off their shoes and put their feet flat up against the board. Then they reached as far as they could in order to get the measurement for the posterior chain flexibility. The next test was done was the push-up test for musculoskeletal. This participant did as many push-ups as she could until failure and counted as many after. The next test was the Queen's College Step Test for submaximal exercise. So the participant first was palpated for their heart rate before starting the test and then was given a heart rate monitor to see the difference. The heart rate monitor had to be set up with an app called Polar Beat, and once everything was set up, the participant sat and rested for 3 minutes and then was given a metronome which was set at 188 beats per minute to allow this subject to make contact with a foot on each beat in an up and down manner for 3 minutes, and then was palpated again for heart rate. The next test was the YMCA bench press test. So the station was first set up with an appropriate bench and barbell loaded to the participant's sex. We used 35 pounds. During the test, the metronome counts 60 beats per minute to establish a rate of 30 reps per minute. The participant completed one repetition every 2 beats. When the participant can no longer maintain 30 reps per minute, she stopped. So for the results, the participant again was Gwen Russell, and the trainer was Rachel Bailey as well as Gwen Russell. So the test was completed on 4-26-22, and the height was 5 foot 10 inches with a weight of 175. Body mass was 24, which is normal. Resting blood pressure, which is 120/73, normal. Resting heart rate was 66, also normal, and the handheld BIA percent body fat was 24.9, which is over, and that increment was 24.9 to 29.9. The next was the muscular strength. For the bench press we did, it was 0.38%, which is average. The push-up test was 25, which is very good, and the sit and reach was 24 centimeters, which is the 32% percentile. And lastly, we did the Queen's College Step Test, and during the test, it was ranked 48.6% which was in the category of good. From this hexagon diagram, we can see from the fitness assessment that the participant ranked high in musculoskeletal and cardiovascular. It was weak in BMI composition. So after all the tests were complete, we created a testing training plan. Her goal is to increase her endurance, and she is already an intermediate level, and so we created a 5-day period of training with 2 rest days intermixed. She is changing it from running and cycling each time, and she's also doing weights after each lesson. She is warming up with static stretching and band work and doing sets of her weights, 3 sets with 5 intervals and no rest between. And this is her training plan for over a 16-week course.